Hello, my spooky friends, and welcome to Dairyland Frights, the paranormal podcast that covers everything spooky, creepy, and mysterious in the Midwest and beyond. And today, boy, every time I can have her on the show, she's beautiful. I'm trying to use beautiful, and she's spooktacular. How you like that, Deborah? And, every time I can have her on the show is amazing because she's so smart, so funny. She just really has some great stuff every time she comes on the show. If you don't know her, please get to know her because not only is she a medium, but a healer. And, Born Paradigma. She's on YouTube. She does some great clips, by the way. She's also on Instagram and other sites you can see her. And that is Deborah. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you, John. I'm always so excited to be on here, and you always give me the greatest introduction. So I'm really excited. Thank you.
It is so easy to do. There are some people that I just love to have back on the show, and you're one of them and everything.
Thank you.
And, again, we have so much fun together, and our episodes do so well. Anytime I get, like I said, an excuse to get you on here and talk a little spookiness and a little, other things to deal with the paranormal and other things to deal with maybe portals and stuff. Hey, I love it. So,
yes.
This is a treat for me.
Yes.
And here's the thing. I want to first catch up with Deborah. What's been going on in your world? Other than you told me you had a sick kid. We will not talk about that.
No,
we will talk about what's going on, paranormal pigma, medium, stuff like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm so lucky. I feel like I'm so grateful. That's what I feel. I feel very grateful because every time that I come on this show, I feel like I have something new to share, or I have some sort of new experiences, or I've leveled up in some sort of way. And it keeps happening. I am going strong with my own, I guess, journey and my own abilities and things like that. They themselves are evolving, which is crazy. And not only that, it's being reflected in my little business that I have, where not only do I do medium readings, obviously, but I do healing sessions, right? So now I'm focusing more on doing subconscious healing through mediumship. And that's been essentially growing. It's a steady increase thing.
Nice.
Where really impressed, and I mean even I'm impressed with the things that I know and can do, and how I can access subconscious thoughts and wounds and pains and truths, and then help individuals also access these and allow them to sort of transmute these pains and fears into their own power and kind of just embody and start to align with their purpose. And I've been seeing clients for months now, and just I can't even describe how they've grown. I really, it's almost like I need them to have testimonials so that they themselves can tell you. Yeah. And even in that, I've seen my own clients develop medium and spiritual or psychic gifts. And I'm just like, holy crap. And so that's the power of subconscious healing. You can tap into your own truth and your own gifts. And that's now what I've been doing. And who would have thought, John, that I'd be here? Not me, but here I am.
Yeah. And again, I've had Deborah on several times, and to see the growth from you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Blows me away. So go back and listen to older episodes. Me and Deborah were just getting to know each other, and she was so nice to come on to my show, a podcast earlier on. We didn't really know each other, but if you listen to each episode we've been on, we've grown closer, and she's grown stronger, and just helping people and talking about different things about her career, as well as what she's trying to grow as a medium and a healer and stuff, and to really help people, especially in this world. And I know this is not, we'll get to the spooky stuff, folks. So just, I just want to keep praising Deborah
Oh,
so she gets a
you're
big
very
head.
kind.
No, but anyway, and so again, when you listen to this, take the opportunity, just to, get on, DM her, get on Instagram, make a comment on YouTube on her video and stuff. She's gotten some really, like I said, great videos and some great views. Please comment. If that's
Yes.
something you're going through, it's something you just need Deborah just to, I don't know, talk about, or maybe you're like, I think I have a gift, great, reach out, see what's going on. So awesome. I'm just so proud of you and just so happy that you continue this steady growth. And I can't say enough about the much success that I want you to have. So there you go.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I really think that those lovely thoughts and, prayers or wishes go a long way. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And I don't know if we'll get into it, but I had a dream about Deborah, but we'll probably have to put that on a Patreon app.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Woo!
Yes. That is definitely Patreon worthy content.
You're gonna have to pay for that, folks.
No.
You have to pay for that, folks. Hilarious. No, it was fun. It was great. So anyway, the reason we are here tonight, Deborah suggested some, how do I say, not agitated. What do you want to say about these women?
Scorned. They've been scorned.
Scorned women. Scorned. Yes. So Deborah, we're just gonna have fun with it tonight. She has some women that maybe you want to little avoid, or if you do meet them, maybe be nice to them. I don't know. But they're out there, and if they're out there and you meet them, just be very, very careful. So Deborah, however you want to do it, you want to take it away and start with the first one and kind of give our audience about what we're talking about.
Yes. So really, we were talking about what we should talk about and, creatures and things like that. And I was like, it'd be really interesting to sort of put a focus or a spotlight on these vengeful, scorned female spirits that haunt the lore of so many different countries and cultures and things like that. And the spirit that really drew my attention was the Kuchisake-Onna or Kuchisake-Onna, as it goes by different names depending on the region. And she kind of stood out to me because it's a spirit that I'm not as familiar with, but yet follows the same sort of archetype or trope that a lot of these, women that have been betrayed or have betrayed, that have been scorned or hurt or have some sort of trauma, and then they kind of reappear to haunt us in this life. And so growing up Latina, right, everybody knows about La Llorona, right? Like that is the first female spirit that you learn about that, haunts the towns, I guess, or the country, and cries out for her children, and obviously can become a not very nice spirit depending on how you proceed. So, and this is something that it happens a lot in different countries. When I lived in the Dominican Republic, there was a spirit or a creature, however you want to call it, known as La Ciguapa. And this was also another beautiful woman. And she lived in the country, like in the mountains, I think. And she, what was creepy about her is that she had like a forward facing torso, but like backward facing legs. And so she walked all weird. And then she would apparently lure people to like their death and things like that. But there is some sort, I can't remember the story, like why she became the way she was. But it's this idea that like these these women who suffer these very painful trauma, especially with love, whether that be love of their children, like La Llorona, or love of another, like what we're going to see with the Kuchisake-Onna, like of a romantic partner. This trauma and this pain kind of lingers, and it's something that doesn't allow them to really just move forward. And so what they do is they kind of stay in this realm and haunt in the liminal spaces, and some people get to see them live and tell the tales. So I just kind of wanted to focus on that.
Yeah. So why do you think that we took tales of women being, it's kind of like in today's world where you break up with someone and you cry and you eat some Haagen-Dazs and you know what I mean? You sit on the couch. But then there are different where it might lead to more serious things. Do you think the culture back then looked at women like, and I know this was true to a certain point, women got married very, very young, 12,
Yes.
14 years old. Part of that
Yes.
was because of lifespan, right? Because typically people in the Middle Ages and so on and so forth were not living until 60, 70, 80 years old. They might be living to 20
Right.
or 30. So if you wanted to start a family, you had to start it early. But for older women, and old, and back in that day, Middle Ages and stuff, was 20 or 30, they were looked at like almost shunned. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, what's wrong with you? There has to be something wrong with you. Do you think that contributed to these stories of like women who were in these situations, and then stories evolved around them to make people scared, like, if you this happens to you, you're gonna turn into, I don't know, a terrible witch or spirit or demon or something.
Yeah, the thing about these stories is that sort of laced between all the lore and the embellishment is true,
Right.
right? And so I think these stories are, in a way, testaments of how the culture for so long now has viewed and treated the feminine. And I'm not going to say women per se, but just like the feminine archetype or the feminine energy. So we'll stick with that. And for a long time, unfortunately, this has been a very silenced or subdued,
Right.
suppressed idea or archetype, right?
Right.
And then, so we have that. Then we have, on a deeper level, when you do this to the feminine, right? When you do this to this archetype, what people don't understand is that this archetype, the feminine archetype, is linked to our subconscious, which is also, there's a link to our emotions. Now, what is the truth in all this? Like, why is this so important? And some of the truth in this lore is like, oh, the idea that if, somebody becomes angry or dies with pain or whatever, it lingers. Well, that's
Right.
because it does, right?
Yeah.
That is actually truth,
Yeah.
right? That is truth. And anything that lingers haunts. It doesn't really matter if it's dead or not. Like if, you have somebody, like, let's say when you're in a relationship, and you're in a relationship with somebody who's constantly codependent and doesn't want to do the work and, wants to blame everything else and is constantly a victim, that's haunting you. Do you understand? Like, that's
Yes.
already haunting. So anything that lingers haunts. And so we're now talking about, millennia of stories of the same sort of idea that this pain, we suffer this pain in life, maybe we die with it, or we die some sort of traumatic way, and it haunts even in the afterlife. And that's true, because what people don't understand is that whatever happens here in this life, you take with you. You don't magically get absolved of all your problems and all your sins and all your wrongdoings and all your pain. You gotta kind of work with it and work on it in the next life too. And if you don't, well, then that festers and that lingers. And there we have now a haunting ghost. Do you understand?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Sort of like
Absolutely. That's
So
That's a great explanation.
thanks. So that's why I thought that it'd be really interesting to focus on women, just because we are the out of the two sexes, we are the ones that just gets this short end of the stick oftentimes. And for many things, and it's also, but on a bigger scale, the reason for this is because silencing or suppressing the feminine energy also suppresses us as souls, which is something that we could probably talk about on another podcast. But there is a link between the subconscious and the soul, and us not really evolving or developing into our purpose, or like coming into our purpose because of said suppression, which is then linked to the feminine archetype. But again, that is another story. So with that said, I guess the answer to your question is, well, yeah, there is some truth, and then other stuff has been obviously embellished with this, and they try to make women, or just like anything to make you look scary, and haunting and spooky, and just create fear. Yeah, so it is what it is, but it's still fun. Absolutely. And also, I think there's always a lesson to be learned in any of these stories about our humanity and about our morality or society or ethics or things like that. Like, there's definitely deeper, I guess, themes to explore.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome.
Okay, I'm excited. All right, so when it comes to this, I did do sort of like research and then laced with AI. So let's see what happens. And,
here we go.
Yeah, we're gonna just do it. But I'm really excited. So I'm gonna go into my podcast persona, and we're gonna tell a bit of a story as you hear all the commotion. Are we ready?
We are ready.
All right, perfect. All right. So this is about the legend, or the myth, or as some will say, the reality of the existence of the Kuchisake-Onna. They say that she waits at the corner of a lonely street, a woman in a long coat, face hidden behind a surgical mask. She steps toward you, her voice barely above a whisper. Watashi wa kirei? Am I beautiful? And if you say yes, she removes her mask, and you see it, a smile carved from ear to ear on her face. And she asks again, even now, and what you say next determines if you live or not. And so we're going to descend into this legend and the spirit of the Kuchisake-Onna, or the Slit-Mouthed Woman. So in classical Japanese folklore, there are two great classes of supernatural beings. Actually, there's more, but they kind of focus on the onryo, vengeful spirits of the dead, consumed by rage and sorrow, and the yokai, the creatures of mystery, shapeshifters and tricksters born from the imagination of the living. The Kuchisake-Onna, they say, belongs to both. Her name translates literally to the slit-mouthed woman, though in other regions, as I've said, she's also called the Kuchiware-Onna, or the broken-mouthed woman. But her story begins not in the city streets of modern Japan, but it begins long ago, in the Edo period, which was somewhere between the 1600s and 1860s in Japan. So let us imagine, once she was a woman of rare beauty, married to a powerful samurai, lonely, and perhaps a little too admired. She sought affection elsewhere. When her husband discovered her betrayal, his honor curdled into fury. He drew his katana and struck across her mouth. Who will think you're beautiful now? Her blood mixed with moonlight, and her life ended. But her rage did not. She rose a spirit bound by betrayal and shame, wandering between worlds, hiding her mutilated face behind a silk or mask, searching endlessly for someone who would still call her beautiful. Now that's how this is all started. But the really interesting thing about this is that there have been sightings. And in 1979, there was a very well documented and recorded incident or event that kind of shook the nation. So in spring of 1978, actually, in the Gifu prefecture, an elderly woman was tending her garden at dusk. But she saw something. She saw a tall, masked figure standing silently at the edge of her yard. Well, the thing is that word travels fast, especially in small communities. And by morning, the story was in the newspaper. Some reports that the gardener, the elderly woman, saw the woman with the mask, but others report that she saw the woman without the mask, and she saw the slitted sort of smile on the face.
Ew.
By the next year, so now in 1979, Japan was in full-blown panic. Children whispered of a ghost in a red coat, a mask, and she carried scissors. Schools were sent warnings going home. Police patrols followed children as they walked. Some refused to leave school without her parents because now people were also reporting sightings at schools. In Tokyo, one man claimed that he met this woman, outside a subway station, and she asked him softly, "Watashi wa kirei?" And he laughed nervously and turned away. But when he heard her footsteps behind him is when he realized that they were not echoes, but pursuit. And then he ran. No one was killed in these sightings or reports, but definitely the entire nation felt completely haunted, and it shook them. So it's interesting that, for me at least, how a simple ghost sighting can turn the whole nation of Japan upside down. Oh, and not too long ago. I mean, this was like the late 70s, 1979. Like, that
Right.
was only I was born 86. So, like, that was just a few years before I was born. So this was somewhat 40 years ago or something, a little more than 40 years, 40 years ago. That wasn't that long ago. So this is modern
No.
society, essentially. Do you understand? This is
Right.
not something that happened
Yeah.
in like the 1800s. You understand?
Exactly. Yeah.
So it goes and it kind of shows you that testimony can be very powerful thing, even though oftentimes it gets scoffed at. But especially within the paranormal, it's really all that we have and all we can go by. And if a lot of people see the same thing, then I don't think it's really just testimony at that point. I think at that point, it lends itself to some sort of evidence, some sort of data. The only problem is that because it's not recorded, then, it all goes to crap.
Right.
But, science at its best. But here we are. So the thing about this figure is that there's obviously more occult or esoteric spiritual significance or symbolism behind that. So I was wondering if maybe we can go somewhere in that. Because on the surface, Kuchisake-Onna is sort of a ghost story, right?
Yeah.
But spiritually, she's something, again, much deeper.
Okay. Yes.
So the thing about the Kuchisake-Onna, it's that there's deeper meaning, especially on an occult or esoteric or even spiritual level. So on the surface, the Kuchisake-Onna is a ghost story. But spiritually, she's something deeper, a reflection of an unhealed collective trauma, a mirror of wounds society refuses to see. Her appearance at dusk marks her as being of liminal spaces, which oftentimes so many beings appear in these liminal spaces, because that's essentially where a lot of these thresholds are. It's a threshold space. So that's why they're so common. Her mask is more than a disguise. It's the boundary between the outer beauty and her inner suffering. And it hides what culture does not want to face, the pain of women silenced, shamed, or objectified. And in occult thought, what is repressed festers. And when enough people share that repression, it becomes part of the collective and it gains power. And when she appears at dusk in these sort of like liminal spaces, it's also seen as a way of the unknown or of the unseen leaking through our reality and sort of trying to give us a glimpse of the truth of our world. So I think there's just so much there to unpack, because again, we're talking about now the greater sort of more archetypal energies, because she's definitely not alone as vengeful or scorned or betrayed spirit. Across centuries and continents, other women also walk this sort of space with her. In Japan, there's another being called the Oiwa. If I pronounced that wrong, I'm so sorry. From the Yotsuya Kaidan. So basically, it's a woman who was poisoned, disfigured, and betrayed by her husband and still haunts him, or haunts, I guess, men. There's also the Hanya, or the mask of jealousy. So this is often used to portray women, the feminine. The feminine is specifically consumed by either jealousy or rage. And so the mask grows horns and fangs as a way to depict this. There's also the Yuki-Onna, the snow woman, who's actually beautiful, but very deadly, as she freezes people to their death.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yikes.
There's, like I said, La Llorona, the whipping woman of Latin America, drowns her children and forever searches for them by the riverbanks. The White Lady of Europe, a ghost in white who appears after the betrayal or death, haunting castles and crossroads. And each of these women or each of these figures, and there's just so many across, all of history. And we're not just talking about modern history. We're just, you go back into the myths and the folklore and the cultures of women, even like Lilith, like in the Bible. You understand? Although I don't know if she's actually in the Bible, but the story of Lilith, is one that's also very common, of this theme of a sort of a woman that was outcasted or exiled or not accepted or something, too seductive or too dark about her. You understand? And this is a wound that we all carry, and each in our own ways, it's sort of asking the same question, do you see me? Do you accept me? Can you handle me in my best and in my worst, even in like my happiest and in my sorrow, my lightest and in my darkness? And this is something that obviously a lot of people, and not just women, like a lot of people ask, like, can you hold me in my best spaces and also in my not so best spaces? And if you really think about it, all these stories are stories of when someone couldn't handle them in their darkest moments and kind of shunned that part of them completely. And so now we've learned to shun those parts of us as well. But like I said, like the spiritual, yes, ask away.
You know what that reminds me of a lot
Mm,
is witches. So like
yes.
back in the 1800s, 1700s, whatever you want to say, if your crops are failing, if you're having issues, and there's this older woman down the road and she's creepy and she's a little weird and stuff.
Yeah.
That's the one. Not that I'm a poor farmer. Not that,
I know.
you know what I mean? Not that I'm having problems.
Of course.
That I'm lazy or what. No. It's that person. And the Salem witch trials, that's a whole different podcast. Sorry to go off a little tangent here for you.
No, that's no problem.
But that all started when teenage girls said, hey, I'm not sure I like these people, and these are a little weird, and I think they're witches because they do X, Y, or Z, or do this act or do that act or whatever. And you know what's funny? Nothing has changed. Think about when you were in high school.
No.
And not to the point, hopefully, in your high school, you were not hung or burned at the stake.
Right.
That's we got a problem. But
right.
You know what I mean? If you were in school or just you're struggling, at school, and it's because of that girl. She's weird, and I think she does this or she does that. And I think these stories, what they do embody is this is our way to kind of deal with that. You know what I mean? Kind of these women have certain strength and certain powers, but we're dealing with it in an extremely negative way. We're not dealing with them like they have, I don't know, you see the Slit-Mouthed Woman and you say she looks pretty and, your life turns great or something. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's about that we want to somehow, and again, this is different podcast of demean and show that this is the reason why she had her mouth slit is because she was doing this indiscretion, not because maybe her husband was this big jerk and not loved her or anything. You know what I mean? So I just think it comes those stories too that we want to say, oh, okay, these women are this way. And also to teach a lesson, like you said, which I just find fascinating because you don't typically in male stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Jack the Ripper or something like that. It's typically they're murderers, they're killers. You know what I mean?
Like they're the instigator, they're the culprit, they're the
There's not. We're not. I shouldn't say putting blame or whatever, but it's just black and white. They're just killer. They're insane, so they kill, and that's it. There isn't anything associated with it other than they're just cold cold-blooded killers. And so I just find that interesting, that kind of the dichotomy of these stories versus, a ghost story where they talk about, like I said, about maybe there's a haunted man with a hook on his hand and he killed, I don't know, the generic 3 teenagers, you know what I mean, in that house
Right.
because he's insane. But these
Yeah.
women, there's a whole different I don't know, layers of different why they do the things they do and what's associated with it, and how when you meet them, what happens. I just find that fascinating.
Right. Because I think that so obviously the archetype of the masculine and the feminine is different, and it's for a reason. But that question that you pose about, oh, when you meet them, what's the lesson? It's because the feminine, whether you like it or not, is there to heal. It is a very healing archetype. And so, and it's also because it is feminine, it's associated with the darkness. And darkness is one of these things that for centuries has been sort of correlated with evil or scary, like you said, witchcraft and Satan and like all this like spooky things, but that's not necessarily true. Darkness in essence is on the unknown, and the unknown is fear. There's fear in the unknown. You understand? So
Right.
these types of stories kind of also are there to help you face that, help you kind of face the fear, face the unknown, ask the questions, go deeper, because it's supposed to be healing. There's supposed to be something there for you to unlock and for you to face so that you can level up, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah,
great.
which is why these sort of stories and archetypes have been around for centuries, you understand? And if you look at like
Right.
women, even women in the goddesses and the gods too, like these goddesses have these double personalities. They can be just as healing and beautiful and abundant and gorgeous, and then all of a sudden destructive and territorial and jealous and everything, because it's both, because we are both. There is no like, oh, I'm supposed to be this like perfect person all the time. The point isn't to be light all the time. The purpose is to be whole. And in order for you to be whole, you need to be authentic. And that means encompassing and embodying both the dark and the light and seeing what the balance looks like within you. And some of these stories is sort of like a warning as to what can happen if you don't do that, if you don't honor that darkness, if you don't face the fear, if you kind of hold on to the pain and you don't release these traumas or transmute this is what can happen. That's the scary part. That's where the fear is coming from, and all these scary stories is because of all this pain and fear and doubt and insecurity and all these things that people don't want to let go of. So then it festers and it lingers and it haunts. And people don't like things that fester and linger and haunts, because things.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah, I love it.
Thank you. So basically, the Slit-Mouthed Woman is more than just a ghost. She's like, it's part of an archetype, essentially, at this point. It's a part of the shadow, right? The shadow side of the divine feminine. In ancient times, goddesses like Inanna, Lilith, and Kali embodied both beauty and destruction, creation and death. But as centuries passed, society split these powers apart. Light from dark, saint from sinner, goddess from ghost, and what could not be sanctified became demonized.
Right.
So true. And so the goddess of the shadow returned as the spirit of vengeance. The Kuchisake-Onna is the modern embodiment of that exile. She is the face of pain that refuses to be hidden, the divine feminine returning in monstrous form to demand recognition and even, to a certain extent, retribution. Her question, am I beautiful, is not about vanity. It's a spiritual challenge. Can you love what is broken? Can you see the divine even in what terrifies you? And when we answer truthfully, not with flattery or fear, but with awareness, the legend says she vanishes. Because, again, laced with truth. Spirit honors authenticity. Spirit honors truth. Symbolically, this means that when we face the shadow without running, when we acknowledge the wounds beneath the mask, the haunting ends. In our world today, a world obsessed with perfection, filters, and appearances, the spirit of the Kuchisake-Onna still walks among us, but not as a ghost on the street, but as the quiet pain of women or men told to smile through their suffering, as the silenced trauma of those who hide their scars behind polite masks. Yet there is power here because the dark feminine is awakening again. From the temples of Kali to the circles of Hecate, the women reclaiming Lilith, and to artists embracing the shadow and the forgotten goddesses that are being remembered, with them returns wholeness, the truth that darkness is not evil, that pain can transform, that beauty is not perfection but presence. So the next time that you hear the question, am I beautiful? Watashi wa kirei. May you answer not from fear, but from truth. Yes, you are. You're more than you know. You are dark and you are light. You are whole. So that is
Love
that.
that. Love that.
Yes.
That's awesome. I'll remember that.
Yes, do remember that. Please. You are whole. You are a whole ass being.
Exactly. And that's a great, yeah, like you said, that's a great lesson. And that's something that, we can carry from in our life and everything like that. Because again, it's, it's hard out there. And sometimes people just need to hear, you're beautiful whether you think you're not, you are, and you're
Yes.
strong and everything. And yeah, I think that's a great lesson. I love it.
Thank you. So that was the Kuchisake-Onna, the Llorona, Siguapa, the white woman, all of these women and all throughout cultures that, again, have been scorned. But why? What is the deeper meaning there? What is really going on? And how can we sort of use that and apply it to our own modern society now, and why these sort of beings or archetypes exist still. Like, what are we not seeing? What are we not facing? And what are we not changing? So much there to unpack.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it.
So yeah, spooky things. This is why I love the paranormal, John, because the paranormal really is spiritual. If people just understood that, we can move forward with some of this crazy nonsense that's out there. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the paranormal always, I get it. You want to get clicks, you want to sell tickets, you want to, show that and everything.
Yeah.
But really, the paranormal is full of two things. Yes, fear, the unknown,
Right.
love, hate, all these different emotions put together that kind of lose touch with. And, I always thought it's really interesting to me. It used to be a time where on weekends, people would go to their local cemetery and have a picnic lunch and sit next to
Right.
Uncle Bob, who just died, right?
Yeah.
And you would just sit with your family and your kids, and you would just,
Yes.
hey, it's a celebration of, and we call that a celebration of life now. And I'm
Yes.
like, why don't more people do that? Why don't more people go to a graveyard cemetery? Well, because Hollywood has made it, there's I'm going to pop up and I'm going to grab you. And I think
Yeah.
that's wrong, but I understand why they do it and everything. And I do think the world is putting their collective minds around understanding the paranormal. A lot of people want to say, oh, I think this is demonic, or I want to think this is, evil. I would say, and I don't know if you agree with me on this, Deborah, I would say maybe 2%. 1% to 2% is truly evil, like truly evil paranormal. What would you think of that?
I would say that it's somewhere low down there. Truly evil paranormal is a very rare thing to encounter. Like, super fucking rare.
Yeah.
Demons aren't always truly evil. People think that just because it has a demon stamp on it,
Correct.
all of a sudden it's truly evil. No, demons are also divine beings.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, are all of them divine beings? Yes and no. I guess it depends who you ask. But the point is that just like there are different people and different personalities and different interests, the same thing with all these beings, demons alike, angels. You understand? It doesn't matter. And people don't understand that. And it's this misunderstanding that has us all worked up around a frenzy about demons and attachments and, I
Yeah.
don't know, possessions
Yeah.
and things like
And
that.
yeah. And two things that I want to share, I think is really interesting. One,
Mm,
they interviewed the top exorcist with the Catholic Church. This is the number
yeah.
one guy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he said 98% of exorcisms he goes on are basically mental health issues. They need therapy, they need maybe a medication, maybe need a
Mm-hmm.
hospital stay. But he did say that 2% he can't explain. He doesn't know how to explain that. And he
Right.
said it's not necessarily evil, it's just something else that we don't understand. There's something else in that leads us to believe that it might be evil, but there's no guarantee that it is, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, and also remember, truth is so relative. Like, what is evil?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. What to you versus to other people are like, well, yeah, it's kind of like you meet someone, and this is a very generic example. You meet
Mm-hmm.
someone, everybody goes, that guy's a jerk. And you're like, well, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? He's a nice guy. But I don't know. He's just a jerk. And you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it's just not that it's evil. It's just weird. And because you're like, why would one person say this and one person say that? I have learned through other mediums, and I don't know if you study this or are going to study this or have studied this, it's about frequencies. A lot has to do with frequencies of people.
Yes.
And I found that
Yeah.
fascinating talking to mediums. They said there's just certain frequencies. It's kind of like, coming in a room and someone has the radio on this and someone has the radio on that. And it's just, you know what I mean? And then getting
Yeah.
that feedback and you're like,
Right.
it's horrible. I find things like that fascinating too, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily paranormal, but it has to do with, again, understanding the unknown and understanding how it affects the supernatural and the paranormal. And again, I think it's a very interesting subject to study.
Absolutely. And frequencies are definitely something paranormal. I think a lot of things are paranormal that people don't consider paranormal. And I'm just like, all right, fine.
Yeah, yeah. And exactly. And the last thing I think what's happening in the paranormal world, as long as we're talking about, is like the Warrens have been basically brought out. If you don't know about them, the
Do.
new movie coming out and everything that's doing really well and stuff. They're basically frauds. And they've been kind of put to the test. At least some people have said they are. And again, I think that's fascinating too, because kind of we were talking about with this story is, are they frauds? Are they not? But there's been a lot of evidence per se that says they are, and some says they're not. I just think it's really interesting, and why I bring that up is about Annabelle and a
Mm.
gentleman taking Annabelle around, to show it off for like $50, which I don't agree with, but that's me.
Didn't he die?
Correct. It's Dan or Don Rivera. Yes, he died.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Rest
and
his.
yeah, and just interesting. So I guess my question to you about with the paranormal before we wrap up here is, how do you explain to someone who comes up to you and goes, Deborah, I can't wrap my head around the paranormal. Like, how would you explain it to them of an easy way for them to kind of understand?
An easy way to understand the
Yeah.
paranormal?
Yeah. Something that they could wrap their mind around, because there's a lot to talk about. But if you're just talking to someone at a party and someone's, oh, paranormal, yeah. I mean, I'm not really sure what you mean by that.
Well, I mean, I guess my first question would be like, what do they consider paranormal?
Okay.
Right? Like try to kind of gauge their understanding. Because I kind of just feel like, again, so many things are relative. But to me, the paranormal is anything that lays in the realm of the unexplained and the unknown, right? So if there's things that we just don't understand, that we can't we feel, but we can't see, or we know, but we don't know how we know it, or we have these experiences that we can't explain, but we know that they were real, or we feel that they were real, but we question if they were real because society has told us that they can't be real. This is all paranormal. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be ghosts, it can be cryptids, it can be spirits, it can be aliens, it can be dreams, it can be like a paranormal or psychic gifts. It doesn't matter. The point is it unexplainable to you? Is it unknown to you? Is there a part of you that says, oh my God, I'm really interested in this, or I know something happened, but I don't know how to explain it? Yeah, it's paranormal. There's just so much in that realm that it captures that there's just no one like catch all like me.
Yeah.
So for me, it really just has to do with the unknown, period. Paranormal. It doesn't matter what that manifests as. It could be, and a lot of these spiritual experiences that people have, these awakenings, are also paranormal, because like you saw an angel, well, that's paranormal.
Yeah,
it's just because it's an angel just because it's an angel doesn't mean that it's not paranormal. Absolutely. It's outside or of the normal, or unknown, or unexplained, not understood fully. Like, you understand? That's all paranormal to me.
Yes. And it's a difficult subject to put into, if you want to say, a box, because there's just so much what your mind can envision and your mind can imagine is the paranormal.
Yeah.
From ghosts to spirits to portals to on and on and on. There's just so many different, so many different things. So again, such an awesome talk. I loved it.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up here, Deborah, if you could tell my audience again where they can find you, as well as what you got coming up.
So you can always find me on my website, www.paranormalparadigma.com. I'm mostly on Instagram and TikTok, and as John pointed out, I am on YouTube, not as present there as I should be and will be, but definitely you can find me there too. But I respond, and on Threads. So many people are finding me on Threads now. So Threads too. So Paranormal Paradigma across the board on everything. And feel free to DM me if you need a reading. So I do medium readings, classic medium readings, connecting you to your loved ones. I even do pets now, apparently. I do anything, really. Like, it doesn't matter. Whatever I can connect to. My specialty is connecting you to loved ones and obviously your spirit guides. But apparently pets have been coming through, and that's been cute.
Nice.
And then I do subconscious healing work. So if you need a healing session and you want to start healing some of those subconscious wounds, like if you do shadow work, a lot of people who do shadow work come to me because there's a certain point where like people just can't, they don't know where to go or how to move forward. Come over. Me and your guys will help you with some of those deeper layers that you haven't accessed, and we can do some subconscious work. Or if you're just starting, come to me and we can do this. And the way that I do it is through mediumship. So not only am I able to access certain truths and knowledge from, the ether, your guides speak to you directly. And I know that John has been a testament to that. So
absolutely,
this is really cool to be able to say this and know that a fellow friend has done it with me and has had a good experience. So come by, medium reading or subconscious healing session, and we'll just take it from there.
Yes. Yeah, so please do that, because it is totally worth it. And I'm not saying that because, I'm close to Deborah and I'm like, just do it. It's honestly a great, great thing you can do. I mean, I can't say enough for it. And, anytime she wants my testimonial, she will get it. So this will... before we wrap up here, next week will be, of course, Halloween week. So I will be releasing some scary stuff, and I will be releasing this video, or I should say episode on, that week too. I'm trying to do everything, because it's like our Christmas, I like to say.
Yeah, I know. Right?
Because I mean, in November, not to say November and December aren't scary, but, this is our Christmas. So I'll be releasing that. And, when you see this again, please reach out to Deborah and make sure that if you're going through anything or you just want to DM, you just want to talk, please do it. You won't regret it and everything. And again, I can't say enough. I love you, Deborah. It's so much. I'd love to have you on again. And, we'll talk more fun stuff. So All right. Well, stay spooky. Bye.